For a long time, I have been interested in the books of Saule Doszhan. When the pandemic hit the world, while self-isolating, I decided to immerse myself in reading her tragedy and fate novel. As it turned out, a new book was difficult to find or even order. I had to contact the writer, and I got incredibly lucky to receive the author's manuscript. Maqbal Musa is a poet, member of the Union of Writers and Journalists of Kazakhstan. She is the winner of Jantsugurov and Makataev Republican contests. Apart from this, she won the first prize of the Republican Altyn Tobulghi contest, organized by the Foundation of Kazakhstan's first president. Also, Maqbal is a winner of 100 New Faces of Kazakhstan project. Is it easy to read a 300-page novel? And this is quite a genuine novel, multi-layered, filled with non-obvious subtexts. Askar Suleimenov, a Soviet Kazakh writer, once voiced the idea that the deepest ideas are the most difficult. In art, there are enough shallow ideas, but the task of the writer is to disguise, to hide, if you will, his thoughts, so that the reader will have to work hard to get to the point. And I completely agree with him on this statement. Saule Doszhan was born in the village of Aktam, Uyghur district, Almaty region. She is a poetess, writer, honored work of Kazakhstan, laureate of international and Kazakh literary competitions. She started her career as a poet. She worked in a publishing house and then on the Kazakh radio. She held a responsible position in the apparatus of the Majlis of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan. In her career, she has spanned The Song of the Crown, The Mystery of the Third Door, City of Dreams, Anxiety in the Big House, The Master of the Almighty Pen, My Stranger's Heart, Longing Books, and other writings. Her works have been translated into Russian, Spanish, German, Chinese, English, Arabic, and French. In 2017, the author's My Stranger's Heart won third place in the prose genre at an international literary competition in Sweden. The writer considers Mukhtar Magawin to be her spiritual teacher and mentor. According to her, the folk writer and his works literally moved Kazakh literature 3 centuries ahead. And for her personally, the works of the classics have always been a huge source of inspiration. The writer devoted most of her life to public service, and only once she retired, Saule Doszhan took on writing properly. Her Anxiety in the Big House novel can be considered a breakthrough in literature. After she finished the novel, she began to study a very complex topic of the Semey test site. Once she collected data, information, and thoroughly studied the topic, she presented her new novel to the reader. In the period of 1949 to 1989, at the initiative of the Soviet Union, nuclear tests were carried out on the territory of Kazakhstan. They caused irreparable damage to local people, nature, and fauna of the region. The land near the city of Semey is still in an unfavorable ecological state. It's not surprising that Kazakh writers, publicists, and playwrights did not remain indifferent to such a resonant event. We present to your attention the top 5 works that describe the horror of the Semey tragedy. Number 5. Galim Shailubai, The Orphan Fowl and the Year When the Proton Fell poems. In these works, the author puts himself in the place of those who suffered from the Semey catastrophe and describes the pain and horror they experienced. 4th place, Roland Sisinbai, The Day the World Collapsed. The story was written on behalf of an eyewitness to the first tests of hydrogen bomb at the test site near the city of Semey. It is filled with memories of the animal fear that rippled people when a mushroom cloud soared over the steppe. The author poignantly described the death of a little girl called Kinjia. 3rd place, Medeo Sarsikia, Semey Tragedy. This is a documentary historical narration that includes eyewitness accounts, scientific research, and verified facts concerning the work of the Semey test site. The writer had been researching this topic for a long time in order to ultimately convey it to the reader as accurately and reliably as possible. 2nd place, Rosa Mukanova, Angel with a Devil's Face. The story of another innocent victim of the test site, crippled girl Layla with a young face and an old body, who, unable to bear the torment, decides to give up her life. This outstanding work formed the basis of the performance of the same name. In 2002, the film Layla's Prayer was made. 1st place, Olja Suleimenov poem Wild Field. It's not for nothing that we put this literary figure in this 1st place. After all, not only Olja Suleimenov wrote the most poetic work of those years, but also initiated the closure of the Semey nuclear test site. Let's talk about the Tragedy and Destiny novel in detail. This book is dedicated to everyone who suffered from the Soviet policy and nuclear tests at the Semey test site. The author hopes that this book will help to draw the attention of the world community to the problem of nuclear tests and their consequences. And undoubtedly, this is the writer's contribution to the fight against international environmental problems. Yes, the Semey test site is closed now, but the consequences are still tangible and the region has not yet recovered from its diseases. The Semey nuclear test site was opened in 1947 by the decision of the USSR Council of Ministers. 456 nuclear tests were carried out there. Of this, 116 were carried out in the air, and all this information was carefully concealed from local residents. The overall power of the nuclear charges was 2,500 times stronger than the power of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The protagonist of the novel is called Аяулым. It's her life that will become an illustration of the tragedy of the people who face the consequences of nuclear tests. The story begins when Аяулым gets to the hospital with her second pregnancy. The girl is married and lives in the Semey region. It turns out that her unborn child has a terrible diagnosis, hydrocephalus. Her experiences and anxieties turn into disturbing dreams. In one of them, she sees a beautiful tulip in her palms. No matter how hard she tries to protect and cherish this miracle, the flower turns black. Its stem dries up and the tulip dies. Then the situation gets worse. Despite the fact that Аяулым's husband demands an abortion, the girl does not agree, hopefully bearing her child for 9 long months. A baby girl is born with a big head and thin legs and arms. Let's read a passage that describes the state of the woman when she sees her child for the first time. Matchstick arms and legs, and the head is twice the size of the body. This is not a head, but a balloon of some kind. Baby, what's the matter? What's bothering you? Can't you feel anything because of the drugs? And through her closed eyelids, sunken eyeballs can be seen. On the forehead, blue veins protrude, beating along with the heart, and an unnaturally deep fontanelle is evident. My dear, my baby, why on earth would you experience this? Kazakhstan had to pay for the atomic ambitions of the once great superpower. What is the bottom line? Our land, our air were poisoned. The Irtis River carries poisonous waters further across the country. The radiation that had permeated everything damaged generations and generations of people. This is the price for errors in the system. The Kazakh land, the homeland of great people such as Abay, became a test site, which to this day still brings suffering to people. An important topic for us, but so far, there has not been a great work or novel about it yet. I think that the writer managed to create a great work. Saule burst into Kazakh prose with her theme and her protagonist. I consider this book a must-read. The story continues with a description of Аяулым's childhood and youth, her first love. Her first love was called Mels. Chained to the wheelchair due to a car accident, the young man was smart and handsome, and there is no wonder that our heroine was happy to communicate with him. The girl's grandmother forbade them to be friends, saying that her granddaughter will have no future with a disabled person, so the lovers parted ways. Later, Аяулым enters the university where she meets her future husband Amir. Then she becomes a mother. Saule Doszhan is a contemporary writer. She manages to vividly describe the hard fate of Oriental women, their lifestyle, inner world, and other special features. Her heroines conquer your soul, filling it with warmth.
Баланың диагнозымен Алматыға шақыртылған Аяулым ақыры осы сапарында туа салып, заманның тажалына...
Аяулым lives for Almaty to have her child examined by doctors. She fails to save the baby. The child, another victim of the test site, dies. The personal tragedy of the young mother coincides with the turbulent events of December 1986. When Almaty youth protests on the main square of the country, they protest against Kolbin's appointment. a young woman witnesses those terrible events. What a symbolic coincidence.
Азаттық жолында күрескен жастардың ереуіліне куә болады. Қандай сәйкестік десеңізші. Романның өн бойында қайта құру
The novel is filled with descriptions of the difficulties of the perestroika period. This is the time when Ayolum was a teacher that was promoted to a head teacher.
меңгерушісі қызметін
At the
атқарып
same time, the anti-nuclear movement Nevada Semey, initiated by the famous Kazakh poet Olja Süleymanov, began to gain momentum. It was the first non-governmental democratic movement that contradicted the ideology of the USSR. Ayolum and some of her colleagues supported this movement in protests and were reprimanded at work. The heroine was also punished for this by her husband Amir. Those who took part in this peaceful protest procession in their village of Karaul were injured children, their parents, and the elderly.
үлкен қариялар еді. Еліміз үшін елеулі күнде жетіп,
One of the main achievements of the independent Kazakhstan is the closure of the test site when nuclear tests were carried out for 40 years. In the novel, the author tells the stories of those who survived the atomic explosions. These are the residents of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the bombs were dropped, and the victims of the American Nevada test site. The stories will remain in the hearts of humanity forever.
легімен суреттеледі.
But let's get back to our protagonist. Her husband, Amir, is dying of a serious illness, the cause of which is, of course, radiation.
Бұдан кейін де Ayolumның
So many things have fallen to this woman's lot. Still, there is a place for miracle in her hard life, such as, for example, the return of the hero of her girlish dreams, Mels. For all these years, they have never forgotten each other, and after all the twists and turns on her life path, Ayolum ought to be happy. Her eldest son, Sunkar, has grown up. Ayolum and Mels reunite and decide to move to Almaty. After that, their twin boys are born. To celebrate, relatives slaughter a sacrificial lamb, hoping for their life to finally get better. The novel ends with Ayolum's dream. In my dream, I see a mushroom cloud soaring into the sky, and the world shatters. Waking up from fear, I run to my sons. Embracing the twins, I think about my dream and become very scared. Certainly, one day the spirit will let her go. She will breathe out a sigh of relief and thank God for all the bad things that were left behind. In the meantime, the unhealed scars in her heart are still aching. Scientists have proved that the consequences of radiation exposure will be passed on from generation to generation for another 300 years. When I chose this theme for my novel, I realized how much responsibility I had taken upon myself. It's impossible to remain indifferent while reading this book. It's characterized as historical truth, as an accurate depiction of a national character, a depiction of human tragedy, resilience, and beautiful images of mothers. The story touches you in a way that makes you really sense these experiences. I think that you, our dear viewers, will be definitely interested in diving into this topic. At the end of our program, I would like to share one good news with you. The writer Saule Doszhan finished the second volume of this novel. We look forward to reading it.